morning speakers who are all up here on the podium. Where's ShenShen Luo? Maybe he's got probably a class this afternoon. Okay, so here are our speakers from the morning, and we're open to any questions from the floor for this group. Please ask us. Wait, here's a microphone.
Oh dear, okay.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to just say, can I just say one little thing about ShenShen that I misunderstood? I think it would be really helpful for everyone to know that piece that he showed at the end of the theme park, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what he submitted for his PhD application because he wanted to bring meaning to those kind of sites.
Indeed. And that's part of what's been really interesting. I thought, if I did misspoke in the introduction, I wanted to make sure that he showed us work that he did prior to his coming here to do his PhD. And it's actually what inspired him to realize he needed to go deeper than just putting surfaces on things, which he showed us. And in the meantime, he's made those pieces there. He had a team of 15 people that he was the leader of for that piece of that animation at the end. So thank you.
So that was really helpful for me to find out because I think my question then would have been to ask Sandro what he thinks of theme parks because you get to work, you're actually at the real place that has real meaning and you're preserving these places for people. Okay, pardon me. I know. Okay, thank you. He said at one level of a place, I don't know how you even describe it. You were somewhere in ancient time with the sites that you have that had kind of a direct experience. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe you should ask the question, Scott.
I guess I'm just opposed to this idea of, because even, ancient Rome, right? It's a construct, right? It's a reconstruction. a real place existed, but at any one point in time, can you ever say where the location or the essence of that real is? And I know this is existentialist, but I just don't think that there's a real. It's a construct, for me.
Do you think, Sandro, because Sandro's dealing with, okay, I could just say one more little thing, okay? Okay, am I not allowed to? My question is to Sandro about theme parks because you are actually out in landscape that is nature. And this nature, not only is the culture being destroyed, the nature's being destroyed. And so what is your response to theme parks?
Well, we can talk, we have a large speak about these themes. Well, for sure, we know a bit about the past. We know the present, and we don't know nothing about future. So one of the aim about heritage and things is to try, for sure, to conserve at least the image or something or what exists now, because this is a responsibility that we have. Also because in future, maybe some other researcher will understand how it was in the past, and we know very well how much it's difficult to understand the past now. So it's we have to preserve almost the image of what exists now. Then about the thematic park or something like that. Well, it's I understand also about the last speech about eclecticism and so on. So this is a much complex answer. So because it's and probably I am just in another step. So the documentation and the creation, a drawing that is container of information and structure of data and so on. Well, the thematic garden and the park are a reality of today, and it's a reflection of a history, a moment in the history that was the history of the last 50 years, or something 60, something like that, probably more, well, or much more recent.
I was thinking like the great, the Crystal Palace in 1839, and that's sort of the beginning of the theme park, World's Fairs, things
existing
like that.
thematic park, all very ancient. In Persia, there was thematic park from 3,000 years ago. So
Kirchhoff Museum.
Yeah.
The Kirchhoff Museum in Rome in the Renaissance, too.
A lot. So I was thinking just in the image about this Disneyland or something like that. So, well, thematic garden always exists. So the open area in town that has specific function and so on. How to develop this in architectural composition and into architectural design, it needs a lot of thinking according to the culture in which culture we live. So I mean, the composition of multicultural things and so on reflect today the presence, but also I make a parallelism with Italy. In Italy, we have a lots of diversity in food, and you can eat differently each villages comparing. You cannot find two bread equal in each village. Also, if it's 500 meters close, has its own way to produce bread, and it's reflecting the way we speak with a lots of dialect, but it's not reflect yet in the way we produce architecture, and it's a missing something. So it's there is not the same good developed today of our specific architecture, and that's why there are lots of very bad things when we see the new architecture in it. So it's very important to understand and find a way to draw, design, and speak in the language of presence with the connection with the identity of the place we are building. So that's for don't see a Venice here or Florence everywhere or Singapore in its cause. We don't need it. It's much better appreciate the local environment that for sure is much more rich, and that's what I think people want to see.
So, thank you. I wanted to make a comment that Scott, if you go to that URL that Scott gave us about his PowerPoint, he's also, in a few days after he gets back to the States, he'll have a PDF of the paper up as well, so that we can use the footnotes and all the resources. I wanted to ask Professor Zeki a question that I really appreciated hearing about the biological underpinnings that you've researched for a bunch of wonderful emotions. And can you talk about how that work has been received in general along the way? I mean, is it embraced? Is it so separate, considered love so separate from biology?
I think it is very nicely received by scientists. It is very well received by artists, but for philosophers and historians of art, it's a very different subject. I think they have displayed a hostility which is most regrettable, and it is partly due to the fact that they believe that they're putting words in our mouths. For example, they say that you're trying to explain beauty. Science can never explain beauty. Art can. Now, the problem with that is that, first of all, we are not trying to explain beauty, as I emphasized. But secondly, if art can explain beauty, it means that there is something explicable. So why would you want to exclude scientists? Not that we want to try. I mean, I think it is a complicated question. So, and philosophers of aesthetics, I mean, let me just give you an example of an extremely stupid question. I could not contain myself of responding to this man by saying, "But what a silly person you are." He says, "Why do you talk about Kant and Schopenhauer? These were days before the French Revolution, when there are new philosophers." And I said to him, "Well, this is like asking me, why would I worry about Leonardo and Michelangelo when Damien Hirst is around?" I mean, it's a rather silly question. But I think that there is a territorial problem there. There is a serious territorial problem. These people are coming to invade what is our field. And that territorial problem is a fiction of their mind, because we're not trying to invade their field. We cannot really account for beauty. We don't try to do that. Nor can we account for love. But we can tell you these are the systems in your brain which are engaged when you experience love. That's as far as we can go.
Thank you, thank you. And it is that middle voice that Scott referred to. Question, please.
Hi, can I go back to ShenShen issue? I mean, and I'm happy he's not here because it's PhD student, and so, I mean, we can, in a sense, address the thing that he was addressing in more, less aggressive for a newcomer, new PhD student. But I was really astonished to listen to that presentation within a heritage conference. I was really astonished. I mean, and the links and the barrier between creativity and heritage seems to me really so problematic in this case. And it's not an issue that Chinese do in a different ways. There is also an organizational issue that was started as a national preservation policy. Then architects took over, and architects and video games people took over. Archaeologists have no voice in this representation, and they are very critical against this. So it's not, this is the way Chinese do, any kind of relativist way. Chinese archaeologists are furious about this takeover of the archaeological. This archaeological site is not even mentioning the word archaeology, this guy. Just, it is supposed to be an archaeological site, the Nanyang or the Xuantang site. So that's really something that I think we are responsible. I would be very, I think you should be very careful in doing your job as a supervisor in this situation, because it's really something that is against the profession of heritage people. Even in China, I perceive of that.
So noted here.
Well, I just, yeah, I think my response is a sigh. I just think this is such a conservative, traditionalist notion of the past. I mean, again, read people like Holtorf and Ian Hodder. I mean, the new archaeologists certainly would say, it's all a construct, it's all an experience. And I mean, if you want to take the archaeological site and put a barrier up in front of it and say, there's the site, there's the sublime, I mean, it's still a construct. It's all a construct.
It's a construct by professionals.
But you're assuming that professionals are not involved in these sorts of sites, and I'm telling you, indeed they are, including archaeologists.
Not in Damin Palace, not in Xuantang.
Well, I don't know the China case, but in other cases.
China, that's what I'm saying.
Well, but,
I mean, also just one other, yeah, I would also say one other thing is, he's chosen to come here to sort of explore these issues. So at least in his particular case, I think he's interested in expanding beyond that. He's saying more kind of, this is where I've come from, this is where it is. And that I think that part of what he's trying to do is he's trying to get beyond that. So that I don't think he would necessarily disagree with you on some of the issues. That's why he's here. So I think that he's someone who there's a, we can see sort of maybe a bright hope for if he, depending upon where he goes with this. And the other issue I think is a lot has to do with also issues of capital and things like that, is who controls the money, who controls the land, who controls the development, which is very different because as a designer, he'll probably be willing, he could do things in a lot of different ways. He's not responsible for all of this, So we have to, acknowledge that too.
Oh, I might add something because as a supervisor, I might add it. So because, of course, I and Ben took this challenge because it is the challenge of the place in which we live and of the time in which we live. And we don't want to hide behind the finger. So the point is that we have a lot of people, skilled and intelligent, coming from the industry and having this kind of background. Now, here we are in a university, and what we wanted to do is to build up on this experience, a research and scholarly experience. So as the title of the PhD is proposing, we want to work on a design theory in order to find out how and if it is possible to embed heritage values and results inside these formidable machines that are the theme parks. So thinking of theme parks is a very long story. And I think the most experienced institution in the world about theme parks is the Catholic Church. They know a lot about it. And before them, all temples in China, in India, in other places. So you can call them in different ways, but if you analyze step by step the elements of what is going on inside those places, and you compare it to what is going on inside other places, you find out that they have many similarities. So we live in this kind of world, and I like what was mentioned, that everything is a construction, and it hangs on what you put into the construction, which kind of values and how people are affected by those values. When we started this game of heritage, we started this challenge in a very tough way, and that's why we put complexity in all this game. Because starting it, we found out that we, as scholars, are first responsible to provide data as accurate as possible on the table of decision makers in order to let them build up political decisions. We are not politicians, or we might be, but not when we are teaching or we are in a classroom or when we are making our research. We might be politicians when we are citizens outside doing other things, but not in our duties. So in this way, it's very, very challenging what we are doing, and I'm not saying that it is easy. We are making things easy, but a panel like this one is not common. So we have all the people here around to try to find solutions on this, and we had a PhD students that we want to train in finding solutions. So this is the whole issue.
So this is the conference organizer. I can't cut him off. Let me just make one quick comment, and then you get a question,
No,
which is I took copious notes during your presentation yesterday about the different way cultures approach things, because I was realizing we need to think about ShenShen's. You raised a number of questions that I need to make sure we put into the conversation about the different cultural ways, and we have to do some more investigating. So I want to thank you. One more question, and then we're going to move on to the afternoon panel.
Yes, just a comment and a question regarding this issue of a replica of something that come from the past in China, no, with a new interpretation. But I have to comment that in the United States, in Los Angeles, we have Venice, that is a copy of one of our town in Italy. So how we can starting and comment on this, because this is something that comes from another part of the world, and now China decided to follow this way. This is a good question, no, to all of us, how to approach this.
So I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you again one more time. And our question and answer period time is up. We have plenty more to say. We could take the afternoon, but we have another panel. So thank you very much. Thank you for the comments and the questions. Thank you for your provocative talk yesterday, and your question today is all part of it, and we have to deal with it. And I'd now like to turn it over to the afternoon panel. Here you are, Robert.